Hello, everybody. This is Ummsaalih with Ummsaalih Speaks. Today I have a special guest, Ibrahim. He has his own YouTube channel, which is say it.
رواد اللغة. رواد اللغة means explorers, or you can say pioneers of the language.
But he's also the man of my dreams. He's my hubby, and we finally did our first video together. And this video is just like correcting a few things that he saw may have been incorrect in a video I did a couple videos ago, Gareth Bryant. And he's just gently correcting him. It's nothing like dropping the mic. We're not trying to offend anyone. And we're just going over a few things. So just sit back and relax. Oh, wait. He did make a small slight error on something in reference to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So of course we have to correct it because we don't want to misquote the Prophet. So here we go.
No. So it's just regarding the use of the word salaf in the amongst the salaf themselves, and so there was a hadith for the Prophet Sallallahu when he was actually on his deathbed. He was dying, and he said to Fatima, he said, "Fattaqullah wasbiri wa ni'ma salaf ana laki." So he said, fear Allah, have patience, and what an excellent salaf I am to you. Okay, so this is just use of the word salaf, and salaf meaning predecessor in the Islamic nomenclature.
Okay, you guys, obviously this is going to be a good video, so stay tuned. Let's talk. Ummsaalih Speaks. All right, here we go. Hey, this is Ummsaalih with Ummsaalih Speaks, and I have a special guest with me. This is my hubby.
Assalamu alaikum.
We are going to be talking about, I guess, a rebuttal for a video that we posted with Gareth Bryant. And just to clarify some things Islamically to make sure that everything is a-okay. And he pointed out a few things that he may have said incorrectly. And we just want to clarify to make sure that it's understood and we kind of know what's going on. So where do you want to begin? It was a very long video.
So I just want to, make it clear that this is not meant as a mic drop, a refutation, on the brother. He said, did say, some beneficial things. And there's some things that caught my attention that I wanted to clear up in the video. And I guess we could start with the first thing that caught my attention was when he said that Muhammad Abdu was the founder of a Dawat al-Salafiyah, that he was the founder of it. And so I've actually, heard this claim before, and, we did did some research and found some of the statements of the ulama talking about Muhammad Abdu. And just to give you an idea of who Muhammad Abdu actually is. Muhammad Abdu, he's from Egypt, from Misr. And Sheikh Muqbil, rahimahullah, who was a great Salafi scholar who was from Yemen. In his time, a lot of people benefited from him in Yemen, and brothers from abroad, many people actually even from here in America went there and studied. And so someone actually asked him, I'm going to give the Arabic text, and then I'll translate it for you. Okay. So the question is, هل محمد عبده مؤسس الدعوة السلفية في هذا العصر ومن هو هذا الرجل? So the person he asked Sheikh Muqbil rahimahullah, and we say rahimahullah because he obviously passed away, so it means rahimahullah means may Allah have mercy on him. He said, is Muhammad Abdu the founder, the muassis of a da'wah salafiyya, the Salafi call in this time period, and who is this man? So the Sheikh, he said Muhammad Abdu al-Misri, هو رجل رائي لا يقل عقلاني. So he said that Muhammad Abdu al-Misri, which the Misri means he's from Misr, he's from Egypt. Okay, so he said he's a man who he basically follows opinion. لا يقال عقلاني. He said it's not said عقلاني. عقلاني usually refers to someone who follows the aql. They put their aql over the naql. They put the intellect over what has been revealed in the Islamic text, from the Quran and Sunnah. He said لأن العقل الصحيح لا يخالف النقل الصحيح. He said So the reason he doesn't want to call him aqlani, which this is a term which does apply to him, but he said because the sound mind, the sound aql, does not contradict the sound naql. So he didn't want to give him that characteristic because if the person's using the aql correctly, then it's gonna agree with the text in the religion, with the Quran and Sunnah. So وهناك إثباتات عليه بأنه دخل في الماسونية, and there is proofs and evidences that he had become a member of the Masons. Okay, وهو من الأسباب التي كانت سبب لتمييع الشعب المصري, and he is also from the causes which was a cause for the, you could say tamyi' means like dissolution, like when you melt something down, water something down. Basically tamyi' is of the Egyptian people. Okay, because he brought this. He's one of the people that brought this Western ideology and outlook to where they watered down the religion. For that. So to continue, he said, "For that kasara minhum man yata'anu fi dala'il an-nubuwah." So from them, those who would speak evil of and contest the proofs of the nubuwah, prophethood. وآخر يطعن في قصص الأنبياء. Another might speak ill or contest the stories of the prophets. وآخر يطعن في كثير من الأحكام. And someone else would speak ill of the many of the ahkam, the rulings. وقد وجد هذا في كتابه المنار. So Muhammad Abdul has a book called Al-Manar. So this book that he wrote, he said it's found in his book, أنه قال الله يا عيسى إني متوافيك ورافعك إلي. So Allah said that, Allah said, "O Isa," and Isa is Jesus, alayhi salam. He said, "Verily I am bringing," he's talking about raising Isa up to him when Isa alayhi salam was raised to the seven heavens in Surah Ali Imran. Qala, this is Muhammad Abdul, he said, Inna Isa ma sayanzil. Because one of our beliefs is that Isa alayhi salam, he's going to come down, he's going to come back, like Allah had raised him. And so we actually don't believe, as the Christians do, that he was crucified, that Allah had someone who looked like him,
had his
likeness, that was actually crucified in his place, and Allah saved him and raised him above the seven heavens, and he will be one of the major signs of the day of judgment, being right around the corner when he comes back. So we do believe that he's coming back. So here Muhammad Abdul said that Isa alayhi salam will not be coming back. He's not going to descend back down to earth, which is related in the many authentic ahadith. Now, and where he said, so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to show you the conflict here, he said, "Inna Isa sayanzilu wa yaqtulu al-khinzira wa yada' al-jizya." So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet Muhammad, he said that verily Isa will come down, he will come back down to earth, and he'll kill the pigs, and he'll meaning the pigs is not going to be staple food anymore at that point.
So no more chitlins?
No
we can't get no more ham hocks. No. All right, I'm just making sure.
He will he'll put an end to the jizyas, which means that basically the people won't have a choice at that time. Like for the Ahlul Kitab, for the people of the book, for the Jews and Christians, they have that option. When this was during a time where the Muslims were going to different lands and establishing the rule of Islam, you can remain a Jew or Christian, you pay the jizya, which is a protection tax. So basically, when Isa alayhi salam, when he comes back, he will not accept the jizya anymore.
So he going to shut it down?
He's going to shut it down. That time period is going to be over.
We need to make our money now.
So he mentioned, in the Sheikh, he said that the ahadith of the nuzul, of the Isa coming down, coming back to this world, and the khuruj of Dajjal, and the Dajjal coming out. The Dajjal meaning he's basically in English, in the Bible they call him the Antichrist. So basically he's going to be a false prophet, and he's going to start out claiming to be a prophet, and eventually he's going to claim to be Allah himself. He's going to claim to be God. And so these hadith are mutawatira. Mutawatira, in the science of hadith, means that there's so many people narrated these hadith, so many trustworthy people narrated them, and to the extent that it can't possibly be, that many people like in all these different places, came up with a lie. So mutawatir is so widespread.
So am I the only? I'm a little lost. So what are
No.
you trying to say about the point that you were trying to bring?
So basically, that I mean, when something reaches the point of it where it's mutawatir, as far as in the science of hadith, this is like, and it's sahih, like when the scholars of hadith say that something is, is correct or authentic, and it's mutawatir, like this is like the highest degree where, it can't possibly be a lie. And so the hadith was talking about Isa coming back on mutawatir. So, and here you have this man, Muhammad Abdul, denying that Isa is going to come back, in spite of the fact that, the scholars of hadith say these hadiths are mutawatir. So he's contradicting sound evidence in our religion.
Is that called for kufr? Like, does it?
Well,
if blatantly denying it,
if he's ignorant, it might be that the person was ignorant, and ignorance is an excuse until until the proof is established. Like the scholars, what they do is called the iqamat al-hujjah. So they establish the hujjah, the proof or the argument against you. And it's not like, because it's a very dangerous subject when if you make takfir, which is calling someone a kafir, and if the person, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, if the person, when a Muslim calls his brother a kafir, if that person is not a kafir, it's going to come back on him.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why it's so dangerous, because basically, if that person you call him a kafir is not a kafir, he's not a disbeliever, then you're the disbeliever. It's going to come back on you. This is a very dangerous affair. Like, may Allah protect us from that.
I mean, so Muhammad Abdul. Wait, I'm sorry. What's the boy name? Because I forgot.
Muhammad Abdul.
Yeah, Muhammad Abdul. So you're basically saying that we shouldn't consider him as a fan or a Salafi because of the fact that he is what he said. What he said. He basically did a lot of outrageous and blatant things.
Yeah, basically, the people, Muhammad Abdul, and there were people that were also influenced by him. And the Sheikh, actually, he talks about quite a few of these people where they they took like if something did not agree with their intellect or their desires, then they would outright reject it. They would reject ayat, hadith. So whereas if somebody is Salafi, it basically means that you follow, when we refer to the three virtuous generations, the Sahaba, Atba'i Tabi'in, and the the Sahaba, the Tabi'un, and Atba'i Tabi'in. So there's the Sahaba, which was the generation of the people that actually met and believed in the Prophet. So there's different. We can go into it's a very detailed description of what is a Sahabi. Like if be somebody
we don't need to go into it. So
most Muslims, I think you understand that those are the companions of the Prophet. Those are the people that believed and died Muslim in that time period. Those are the Sahaba. Whereas the Tabi'un are the people that followed the Sahaba. They were the students of the Sahaba. And Atba' Tabi'in, just to be brief, are the students of the people that were students of the Sahaba. Okay. So those three generations.
So why do we call ourselves Salafi? Why are we considered Salafi? And because Gareth, in this particular video, he, I don't know if it was more of an emotional plea or he just generally felt that, you shouldn't consider yourself Salafi. And he's like, let's just get rid of all the isms. And that was like a kind of concern for me, but I understood where he came from. But at the same time, I felt like he was hurt, like, because a lot of people are jaded by a lot of the Muslims that may be in different parts of the country and have bad experiences. So how can we differentiate what he's saying and what else? Like,
well, Chef, I'll invite anybody to go on YouTube and look up what Sheikh Al-Albani, rahimahullah, who was the great muhaddith, scholar hadith of our times, and how he defined Salafi and the importance, and he, and a lot of scholars, they went into why you call yourself Salafi, because he basically said in the times that we're in, it doesn't suffice to just say I'm Muslim. Why? Because if you go to somebody who's Shiite, for example, what are they going to say? They're going to say I'm Muslim. Somebody who's Sufi is going to say I'm a Muslim. Somebody who's from Ikhwan al-Muslimin is going to say I'm Muslim. So what you're doing when you say you're Salafi is you're summing up the statement that I'm a Muslim upon the the Quran and the Sunnah upon the understanding of the Salaf Salih.
Hmm.
So in brief, you could say, Salaf, so you're defining your manhaj. Manhaj meaning the way you understand and the way you implement, the tatbiq, the way you implement the deen. So, when we go for a Salafi, when he goes to the Quran and Sunnah, he looks for how did the Salaf understand this, right? For example, in the Sifat, the attributes of Allah, like with somebody who's Salafi, if you follow the Salaf, you see that the Sahaba, when it talked about Allah's hand in the Quran, Yadullah, the hand of Allah, like they didn't sit there and try to reinterpret it, and try to give it a different meaning than what was apparent. They accepted it how it was, and they didn't go into the details because the details weren't there. Like we don't know.
So we don't know how many fingers he got. He don't know if his thumb is longer than everything. So we weren't in talk. So that basically you're saying like it wasn't like.
Yeah, they accept the details on the apparent meaning of what they were given, as explained by the Prophet ﷺ, but they didn't sit there and they didn't come up to the Prophet ﷺ and say, "What does Allah's hand look like? Does he have five? Does it have five fingers on each hand?" And everything. They accepted the attributes of Allah as they were. Whereas like somebody who's not the opposite of Salafi would be Khalafi. You follow the Khalaf, the later generations who came and started changing things. So somebody who's not following the Salafi manhaj, they may reinterpret the attributes of Allah because they're trying to run away from tashbih, which means comparing Allah to His creation. So and they end up falling right into what they're trying to run away from. So to say, the creation has a hand, so Allah can't have a hand because laysa kamithlihi shay'un. He's, Allah, as Allah says about Himself, He's unlike anything. He's incomparable. Nothing is comparable to Him. He's incomparable to anything. So, Allah doesn't have a madiyah. He doesn't have a like, a peer, or somebody that's equal to Him, or something that's equal to Him. So like, for example, the creation, we have sight. Animals have sight. Human beings have sight. The fish in the sea, they have sight. But since the way that a Salafi understands it is that laysa kamithlihi shay'un, Allah is unlike anything, but He is al-basir. He's a seer. He has. So we affirm the attribute, but we don't go into, all the details. Of like we don't know. Does that mean that Allah has two eyes? We don't know because it's not in the text. But we know that Allah, everything, every attribute is only really a namesake that we have because, like we see, but Allah sees everything. Our sight is limited. So you got to look at it like that. All of Allah's attributes are attributes of perfection.
And you went over the origins of most of the people that we consider deviant in reference like the Shia and stuff like that. Walk away. I'm sorry, but we're just gonna hurry up and go in your room. So you kind of went over, where the origin of the Shia or where you went over that with us. And you explained to us why we differentiate ourselves from them for that particular reason because their origins came from those of, how would I say, not bad people, because they were still the companions, but
these were people that were influenced by ideas that came from outside of Islam. So when we're talking about being Salafi, we're following Islam the way the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught it to his Sahaba and the way the Sahaba, the companions, understood it. And we're sticking with that, because obviously, the people that were there would have the best understanding of the event. But it's like if someone is an eyewitness to a crime and somebody, he heard about it, like let's say there's a car accident, right outside, and the cops instead of going to the person that was there and saw everything, he goes to somebody that was in another town who claims that he understands what happened in an accident better than the guy that was actually there and saw it. So you see the foolishness in that, for somebody to come later, in a later time period, and to say that they somehow have a better understanding than the people that were there. So obviously they have the best understanding.
So no, so I just wanted to clarify. The whole point of this, so us to talk about this, because Gareth, he brought up a lot of good points as well. Could you give me some of your experiences? Because he was talking about how a lot of he seemed jaded by a few brothers or whatever, people spoke against him, and could you share some of your experience and relating to how he felt? Because we were talking and we were just saying like maybe if people were more gentle instead of as harsh as they usually are, maybe Gareth wouldn't have felt that way, or you wouldn't have felt some type of way sometime. I mean, so could you, elaborate on how your experiences were?
Well, yeah, I think this is something that is uh, pretty, very, more so in the West. Because when I was, I could say, like, I mean, alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me that I went to Morocco for 2 weeks. It gave me a chance to like really to actually use the Arabiya that I was going through the learning the Medina books at the time, and I believe I was on book 3, so I had some level of understanding. But I actually had to use it because most of the tourists, tend to be French. So a lot of Moroccans, they're fluent in French as well as Arabic. So, but I don't know any French, so the only way I could communicate with them was in Arabic. So which and their dialect is so jacked up that
you gotta say it in a better way.
I mean that other even other Arabs, they say they can't understand them, but they can understand everybody else.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So, there's no way there was no way I'd be able to work with them in their dialect. So I had to use the Fusha, the proper Arabic. But what were we talking about?
Oh.
Okay, but when I came across people that were quote unquote Salafi over there, I didn't see that it was so different. Like it wasn't like they were holding up a sign like, look at me, I'm Salafi, like, or, like they would like the moment you walk into the masjid, they're looking for what kind of bid'ah you got, they can
or they try and find out if you're married or not, because they try and say if you try and take my husband or not.
Well, yeah, that's for the woman.
How many?
I wouldn't experience it.
But, okay,
but no, so it was a completely different, and that like I think at that time that made me feel a lot more comfortable with being Salafi, because when I first was introduced, like when I became Muslim in 2000, and I was around everybody, because I like a lot of people that when they first come in, some people might come straight into Salafi, but like many other people here in America, we don't know who's who, so I came up, I was around Tabligis, Ikhwani, I didn't know who was who. And then when I moved to New Jersey, because at the time I actually took Shahada in Atlanta, and I moved in with one of my aunts in New Jersey, and I started going to a masjid that happened to be Salafi. And I saw the difference right away, because when I was in Atlanta and I was around, brothers from overseas, primarily brothers from Pakistan, brothers from, Egypt, all different countries, everybody would invite you to the house, for tea, like, so there was like a genuine brotherhood. Whereas now I'm in Jersey, like nobody's inviting me to the house for tea. That's something that we just don't like. We don't do. We're not good at entertaining guests. I don't like in the inner city and everything, and up north especially.
I am.
Yeah. Well, alhamdulillah, it was something we learned. But I experienced the harshness that, like, when the Salafi brothers would come to me and they would tell me being upon the understanding of the Sahaba stuff, of course I can't disagree with it. It was nothing they were saying that I could disagree with, but it was the mannerisms that turned me off at first. Where I was like, well, why these brothers, they're following the Prophet Sallallahu and the Sahaba, why are they so rough around the edges? Like, why are they so harsh with everybody? So that like I couldn't understand that. And when I got around people that weren't like that, that I think kind of been through all the have, and they were able to mature a little bit, like you see a whole different attitude and perspective and how they treat people. So I mean, it's it shouldn't be that a brother. I can give you a story. A brother I know, he was telling me he was it was during the Eid, and there was a brother that just became Muslim, and he's brand new, just took Shahada that day, and the brother, he's from a rough background. He got all gold fronts in his mouth, gold chain, all that stuff. So
he was black. It's like
so at any rate, so the brother, he's walking through the crowd and he's feeling the love. He's getting he's feeling the brotherhood and everything, and everybody's showing him love. And the brother that told me the story, he saw a brother that he knows has that harsh disposition about him, and he saw him walking towards this brand new Muslim. So he actually intercepted him. He walked in between, and he came up to the brother like, "This brother just took Shahada today, Akhi. Let him experience the love." Right.
Go ahead. Go ahead, babe.
Now, so so this is something that we deal with a lot in the West, where somebody they they might be a brand new Muslim, they don't know anything. You know what I'm saying? And so the first thing they need to learn is Tawheed, not where their pants should be, or these are things that they learn in time. Because once they know who their Lord is, and once they know about the Prophet Sallallahu and they come to love him, it's going to be easy to follow. Like if when somebody knows the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu and they come to love the Prophet Sallallahu, and they know that he commanded, he said to trim your mustache and grow your beard, it's going to be easy for them to do it because they know, this is because they love the Prophet Sallallahu. They love, they know that this is anything that the Prophet Sallallahu told us to do as far as the deen, they know it's coming from Allah. So, you have to start with the basics and build upon that. You can't, and the thing is to get the appearance right, but not work on the inside, not work on your heart, then, you're not going to come across as sincere.
So he also mentioned a few things about your skin color. I mean, I don't see color. Sorry, I had to. So he said that because you were white, you had certain advantages. Do you feel that you have those certain advantages? He mentioned the whole, being able to get because of the skill set that you do have and being white, that you can go and get any job and, wherever.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can't deny that there's prejudice and racism exist, in the world, and unfortunately, amongst the Muslims, we see that as well. And I've experienced myself, like the same brother that told me that story. I remember, I stayed with him for a couple of days, and I went to the masjid that he usually goes to with him, and it was mainly an Arab community. The brother was African American, and so this is my first day there. I prayed Fajr with him, and right after Fajr, like all these brothers are coming up, talking to me, getting to know me and everything. And when we left the masjid, the brother told me that it took something like 6 months before anybody started, talking to him like that. He was coming there. So there is, I've definitely, seen that, where there's a different reception when it's, a white American becomes Muslim, unfortunately, amongst, particularly, some like Arab communities and what have you. And, there is some, racism, does exist.
So you feel it? I feel it more. I think I feel it more, but you feel it first when I think like when they see you come in, like a lot of the Arabs, it's like I was expressing like it's like a frenzy, and then after they see you coming in with our sons, it's like like. So how can you talk about your experience with doing that? Because I'm not on the brother side. I just get the backlash because I got the white babies.
Well, I mean, there was one masjid we went to in particular that was the only masjid in town, and it was predominantly Palestinian, some Yemenis there, and we. No, you would see the different ways. Unfortunately, it's not everybody, but you would see that some of the people that they would would act differently towards my biological light skin kids as than they would act towards my dark skinned stepsons and they would be like, you see the shock in their face, like when we walk through the door and they're like, how did this happen? Like one of my sons, he actually came to me and told me that some guy asked him, is like, why is your father white? I don't understand, like and this is coming from jahal. This is ignorance, of the deen. Like, if you look at the Sahaba, were like represented like so many different, even though they, the Prophet ﷺ was from, Arabia, and most of his followers were Arabs. Like, you would see that many different people came from different parts of the world that followed him, and even in his lifetime and after him, and they all were, but they had to work out that jahiliyyah, that ignorance, that pre-Islamic ignorance, because there was still some of that present. As you see, like in like the famous story, one of the Sahabi got in an argument with Bilal. We got to realize that this is the Muslim world is coming out of the the period of colonialism, and there's still very much there's an inferiority complex. I think
Inferiority.
inferiority complex
Don't worry
amongst
about it.
our
You're so cute.
amongst our our foreign brothers, unfortunately, that have been colonized, and they kind of look at Europeans in a certain way, where in everything that comes from the, like, it's like this ideology where everything that comes from the West is great. You know what I'm saying? And it's the haq, it's the truth. I'm saying, from medicine, science, everything. Education. How you educate your kids. And to the point that even if it's a blatantly contradictory to the deen, that they'll dismiss the deen in favor of something that come from this Western ideology.
Hmm. So do you he also mentioned about skin color in reference to how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he looked.
Hmm.
He said that he was closer to his complexion. He was like a caramel brown, a little lighter than me. Um, like, have you come across any evidence or any information in reference to that? Or is he more closer to your skin color? You're considered red. You're not even considered white. We say white here, but you're
Hmm.
more red. I think you're pink.
I mean,
He's pink.
from what I read, it seemed like the Prophet ﷺ was more in between. Like, you would see what some of the Sahaba would talk about, like he wasn't you know like say too dark or too light. Like, he was pretty much right in between. And I think that's, and Allah knows best, it might be from Allah's wisdom that he chose to give his final messenger a complexion that was like right in the middle.
Mm.
Because if he, especially with the world we're in now, like, let's say if he was a straight up white man or a straight up black man, there would be some people would use that as a even though some people, the fact that he was Arab, would use that as an excuse not to follow him. Which is not a valid excuse, but maybe it would cause more conflict because of how people in these times feel about race and color.
Yeah. So I had mentioned because I remember reading a hadith and it was saying something about his complexion being like the moon, and he defended it, saying that they were talking about the purity or the lack of imperfection. I mean, no, the lack of, what is it? The lack of blemish.
Mm-hmm.
So would you agree with that as well?
I don't know, but that because we the Arabs actually used the moon, to describe beauty,
Mm.
where like a woman, say she has a niqab on and she's like extremely beautiful, and she takes the niqab down, they say her face was like the moon. It's just a way of describing it, and it's not talking about her color of skin or anything. It's just talking about how beautiful she is.
Okay, so this is clarifying what he was saying, because a lot of people interpret it probably like I've done, like he was, just basically that light, like that, bright, that.
Oh, yeah, because even in you find even in modern Arabic, like in Egyptian Amiya, colloquial, they say Amur,
Yeah.
which comes from, it's actually Qaf, it's Qamur, which is, comes from the same root as Qamar, the moon.
Mm.
So, talking about somebody who's, handsome or beautiful, so it refers, from my, studies, it refers to, beauty when you compare something to the moon.
You're a more.
It's Amur, Amura,
So we also talked about a few things. We talked about what else did we talk about? We talked about some. So go ahead, go through your papers. There was another couple things you want to clarify, baby. Don't make it too long, because I know you're like thorough about your explanations, and you be doing too much. You can't be like boring to people.
No, I mean, well, basically, that's what I wanted to. I wanted to clarify that obviously Muhammad Abdul was not the founder of a
So who
Salafiyah.
was the founder of Salafiyah?
The Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Whoa!
So I mean, basically, because he, like, there's a hadith where he refers to himself when he was dying, basically, and he said to Fatima, and a ni'ma salaf laki, that I'm a excellent salaf to you. So the term, salaf, it means predecessor is what it means.
He says it means antiquity. Antiquity.
Well, because I mean, so like, okay, so say something, when you say something salaf, okay, the verb salaf,
Salafa.
it means that it's something
So
that
remember, he
passed.
messed up.
Okay, so when we say salaf, talking about a group of people, it can be like your predecessors, your ancestors, but when we talk about being Salafi, we're talking about a specific Salaf. We're talking about the Salaf Salih, the righteous predecessors. So we're talking about, people that passed. And inshallah, I can find some good quotes on that.
Okay. So while you're looking for those quotes, he also mentioned a few things about Saudi and his thoughts on going overseas. And he's like, he's feeling lost about where he wants to go. In reference to that, how are your thoughts overseas? But at the same time, I feel your thoughts about overseas might be a little tainted because you see overseas differently than people who are African American. Because honestly, yes, you get a little bit of backlash because you have, your black wife and your black kids, but your experience in Morocco might be different than a lot of people's. But you know what? Sully's uncle went to Morocco. He loves Morocco.
Yeah.
But another black person might have. I think it's just individual experiences.
Well, yeah, that's why I'd say I can speak of Morocco because I went there, but that was one of the first things I noticed when I got to Morocco is how little they worry about the whole black-white issue, like how little of a deal it is there as it is. Not saying there are still people, like anywhere, there's going to be people that might be prejudiced towards one group of people or another. But in my mind, I wanted to test it out. So, like, I know it was like when I was out in public, and it was quite a few times where I saw like a dark-skinned African man who was walking with a very like a Arab woman that was as white as me, and nobody looked twice at them. Like it wasn't like here where if an interracial couple walks down the street, and everybody's staring, like everybody's like amazed, like how did this happen?
Yeah.
Like over there, like they don't care, and like they it's. I mean, what a brother said it was because of poverty that they're willing to give up their daughters like that. But
that was a little funny.
Yeah, but yeah, they really, as long as you're Muslim, they don't care. Like that was my experience. So, like me being white, like they actually assumed that I wasn't Muslim because I was white. So like I can when I went to I remember it was like the king's masjid. It was like this big masjid that the king had built, and it's actually a tourist attraction. So you have a lot of people that are not Muslim that go there because of how beautiful the architecture is and everything, and they take pictures and whatnot. But they don't. But they only let Muslims inside the masjid to pray, like inside the masjid. So it was actually time for salat, and the brother who was basically was my host, who was taking me around, like, so we were about to walk into the masjid to pray. They didn't stop him. He looks Arab, he looks, he's from the country, he walks right in. But a police officer actually stopped me. And he asked me, is that the Muslim? You Muslim? And I said, yes. And he said, so he told me to say the Shahada. So I said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah. I said, okay.
So did they do a stop and frisk?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't do any of that.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Like I just wanted to clarify because it was a lot of things that were said. But what about the thing when he was talking about Shadi Muhammad? And what do you think about the things when the brothers were refuting him? Do you feel that they were appropriate in their actions with refuting him, or they shouldn't have done? We don't even know what they refuted him about. But do you think they should publicly refute people, or should they go about it a different way? Because we were talking about that before in reference to how some students may. Oh well, shoot. Okay, you because I don't want to get in trouble. So you had.
No, I think in America, in the West, like unfortunately, we have this. We still have like a lot of us come to the deen, and we have celebrity, wannabe celebrity mentality. Where maybe we didn't make it as in the entertainment industry as a an artist or an actor or whatever the case might be, and it's something that affects, I think, most people in America, like in general, just whatever your walk of life, and it's something that's not easy for us to overcome. So you have a lot of people that want to be in the spotlight, so they go around and they look for things that are wrong with people, and instead of coming to that person and giving them nasiha, like starting out, with that, brother to brother, like pulling them to the side and saying, Akhi, this is what you did was a mistake, or what you said was a mistake, and here's the proof. And you give them the evidence. You see people that will go, nowadays with social media, they go on Twitter, they go on Facebook or whatever, and right away, refuting a brother because they want people to, bring people's attention towards them. And that's how I see it. Like, if I see somebody say or do something incorrect, and if I have knowledge about that, like I might think it's incorrect, but if I don't know the proof, I might just say, brother, I heard, I heard Sheikh so and so. I think he spoke about this. Is something you should look into. But if I actually know the proof, I might, I can come to him and
the mic on him.
Yeah, like because I remember when I first became Muslim, like I've seen a lot of that, like where of course I was going to make mistakes as a new Muslim, and people would like, put you on blast, like in front of everybody. Like, Akhi, why are you shaving your beard? Like I just became Muslim a week ago. It takes time to grow. It's like, right, they're looking for something to refute you with.
So you ain't even shaving. You just had a young bull beard. Like it was a baby beard.
Because I had like a lot of, guys I knew of, we all, we had goatees back then. I didn't have a full beard until I was Muslim. Just like say, you're dragging your pants on the ground. Somebody, you coming out of Juma and somebody puts the person on blast. Like, why are you dragging your pants? Don't you know those? What's below the ankles is in the hellfire? And they make sure everybody knows about it. Everybody sees it. Instead of pulling you to the side, instead of embarrassing you in front of everybody, pulling you to the side and just, the Prophet ﷺ said, whatever's below the ankles is in the hellfire. And the person, when the iman gets in the heart, that's going to be easy. Like, because I remember when I first heard about that, at that point, my man, was already building up. And like the minute the brother, told me that and he showed me the hadith, right away my pant legs came up.
It was like instantaneous. Did you bend down to do it, or I was like,
no, I had to bend.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like. So, I didn't know if your man was that strong that it did it by itself. Go ahead.
No, but yeah, I mean that's what we see, and like if you look at and I don't want to comment directly on anybody's situation because I don't know the people involved. Like if I, and like for me, like I'm not gonna, like I wait until I see, like when I see the kibar or ulama start saying somebody's, deviant and stay away from, that's when I start paying attention. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes it could be a personal beef, and and I've been Muslim for 20 years now, and I came to the Salafi Dawah, a few months after I became Muslim. I first got introduced to. So I've seen, the beefs and, that, were really intense, like even maybe more so than like now it's like it might be on social media, but it was where it was face-to-face beef. Like, it was like
Dang.
two groups about, like ready to throw down and everybody's saying it's Salafi, and because of, having this type of attitude and putting people on blast instead of, taking a brother to the side and speaking to him. So sometimes it can be personal, like it might be.
But then they get the community involved.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think that's wrong because it's like, I think that I'm not going to comment on any particular beef that happened, but I'm just saying like it confuses the Muslims because last week it was okay to take from Brother Fulan, and then now it's not okay. So that is the confusing part, and and we trust because we're so afraid of taking from someone because at Salafi we are so strong on trying to stay the straight and narrow and to stay on the middle path, and we're so sensitive about who to take from, and then it's confusing. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna take from this brother this week and this brother next week. We can't do it because I heard the brother say that the brother said that we wasn't supposed to take from him, and it's like, huh? So we can't read his book no more? I just finished it.
Well, that's why, I think everybody should recognize their level and, stay in their lane. When you hear about these things, just, just wait and see. Like when, you have like Sheikh Rabi, somebody like on that level, and he's saying, stay away from this person, he's deviant. He's going to come with his proofs and evidence. She's going to show you, exactly why that person's evident. But if it's just, Fulan, you're like a lay person in the masjid, and it's saying don't, I mean, you take heed from the brother because he might be telling you the truth, but at the same time as you want to verify.
Wait, stop. It's
No.
Ummsaalih speaks. Okay,
Okay.
we got kids.
Yes.
Look at this.
So it's,
Go.
so you want to, it's like they say, trust but verify. Like, you see even Kufar say that,
But
and Jakum Fasik be never for debating. Like, if a Fasik comes to you with some news, then verify it. So you don't want to just grab something because somebody could be slandering, somebody. They could, so you don't want to just like take their word for it. And
But what about Shadi Muhammad? Like, he mentioned him, and he said it was, it was hood stuff. Like, it was, he used the N word. We're going to try to avoid using it. I don't use it that stuff like that. Okay. So, but that's a sensitive subject because, like, I remember, Shadi when he was Salafi, like when he considered himself Salafi, went to a couple of his lectures, and people were like on his top, and then it went from being on his top from us not being allowed to even, or if to even acknowledge him, in our community. So what do you think could have helped the situation?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't know the parties involved. Like,
Yeah.
So that's why I don't want to speak on that. But I think, with a lot of times, like if you look at like some of these, there's some famous callers in the Arab world that, the scholars, if you look at the history, the scholars were patient with these people for years, before they called them out, and they did their best to advise them. And behind closed doors, they didn't come out in public and advise them until it was obvious that the person, like there's a difference between someone who calls the innovation and someone who does innovation out of ignorance. Like, you have to know there's a difference between a da'i and the mad'u, the one who's, the caller and one who's called. So if you see somebody, they do something which you believe to be innovation in the masjid, and there's a layperson, you don't go around warning everybody in the masjid from the person and, screaming at the brother and calling him a mubtadi and an innovator because he probably didn't know, and so it's upon you, to bring your proof, show, show the brother and do it in a polite and gentle way. Like, as I seen was a talk with Sheikh Al-Albani where somebody asked him and he said that, the Salafis, he thought it, he said it might be true, even though he considered the questioner considered himself Salafi, that the Salafiyun or Mutashaddidin, Mutashaddidun, that they're harsh, that there's harshness amongst the Salafi. And so, the Sheikh Albani said that lean, gentleness, is the asl, in da'wah. But that doesn't mean harshness does have its place, right? It does have its place in da'wah, like, depending on the severity of what it is. And it takes hikmah, it takes wisdom to know when to use harshness and when to use gentleness. But in most cases, like even you see Pharaoh, he was the greatest tyrant of his time. And Allah told Musa alayhi salam to speak to him with a speech that was laying, that was gentle, soft. So this is like, and this is talking about Pharaoh, and you're not going to come across anybody that's as big of a tyrant as Pharaoh was. Okay, so so when we start, we should start, we start with the nasiha and we talk to the person in a kind and gentle way so that they accept it. Because you think about it, like you yourself, if somebody comes to you and is screaming at you and calling you an innovator and calling you all these different names and a fasik and this, that, and the other thing, more than likely you're not going to want to accept what he got to say. Like, even if they're right, you might reject it just because of the tone and the way they're coming at you. So there's, if you look at how the prophets and messengers, how they advise people and how they taught people, then this is the correct approach, not the putting people on blast and using our street culture.
It's entertainment. It's entertainment. It's like, yo, let me tell you what I heard about brother. Like, you hear this from the sisters, you hear this from because, and then but it trickles down to the layman. Like me, I'm a layman. Like, it trickles down, and we're so afraid to take from anything because, like, where do you move? Like, what if I you have to like take a picture of a book and send it to the imam and make sure it's okay to read. Like, it's not plain to see.
I mean, that's why, like in every field of knowledge, you have those people that are qualified. Like just like I'm not going to go to a poet if I got a problem with my liver. I'm gonna go to a doctor that specializes in a liver.
Maybe I
You know,
should do that. Next time, no poets. Okay, I won't go to a
so
poet.
so there should be people. Inshallah, you find somebody who's knowledgeable in your community that especially if they actually have, when they have a connection to the ulama, like they can, like it's, you have an imam in a masjid, he's fluent in Arabic and he can call the ulama and ask them directly, as a question. Like that's the best, the best thing, instead of like just shooting in the dark. Like, when we go on the internet, like and you don't know the person, you don't know nothing about them. Like, you're searching for information and, you get all types of crazy stuff over the internet.
It's like WebMD.
Yeah. So you want
You'd
to
be like, I
find.
got a cough, and then next thing you say, you about to die, and I'm like.
So yeah, you got to find somebody you trust, and who's knowledgeable themselves, and the best students of knowledge are the ones that they refer everything back to the scholars. Like you even find the scholars when they're talking, like they'll say that Sheikh so and so says such and such. Like they don't even like I seen. You see many of the scholars when the people would praise them and they would stop them from praising them and they would say, "I'm just a student of knowledge." And these are like the people that we consider like the major scholars. So it's about having humbleness, and unfortunately, you have everybody's on different levels. You have some a brother that he might have just finished the book one of the Medina and now he's like giving fatwa. You know.
So tell us your level of because you never say that you're expert at anything. You're like, I'm still learning, and I'm like,
Well,
my
yeah,
dude.
I am
I
still
get
learning.
it, I get it. But like, come on, babe. Like, just say what you know, or no, you're not
Uh,
gonna do it.
I mean, I can say I've, alhamdulillah, I, I say like I was blessed that I had a lot of help, whereas like trying to learn on your own is like you do need a teacher, because you can't ask a book a question. So that's why it's so important that.
I'm glad I taught you.
So I mean that's why it's so important to
That's why you
if you
can't have
have.
class with your husband because you always flirt.
Hey, come on.
Sorry.
So the importance of going and sitting with the ulama if you can, because like I said, you can't just like I think it was Sheikh Uthaymeen give the example where if somebody came into a library and it has all these Islamic books like Kitab al-Tawhid, like all these books of knowledge, all these matun on the shelves, and he starts disparaging Islam and saying all these incorrect things, the book's not going to come off the shelf and refute him. You're going to need a solid student of knowledge or a sheikh, a scholar to come and refute that person.
Mm-hmm.
So when trying to seek knowledge on your own, it's not. I mean, yeah, you can you read books and everything, but you want to have somebody that you can go back to and ask questions. And
Do you feel that Black scholars should teach Black people, or do you feel that it shouldn't matter what color you are as long as you have the correct knowledge? Because he did mention, we should be teaching our people, and he talked about how like Bilal Phillips and all this, they lost their credibility and they weren't able to teach anymore.
well, we have if you take your time and like look like, I mean, if that's your preference, we do have Black Salafi scholars in the world, and we have scholars from every from all different nationalities and whatnot. You don't have to this misconception that you have to be Arab. Like there's many great Arab scholars, but if you look at some of the greatest scholars of this deen, like every Muslim probably at least has a summarized Sahih Bukhari on the bookshelf. Bukhari, he was an Arab.
Bull was Russian.
Well, he was from Bukhara, which is now present, what used to be part of the U.S.
Like I said,
Bukhara.
Bull. I'm so sorry. I gotta stop being ghetto. Sorry,
Okay.
he was Russian.
Okay. So, which like is now considered like I believe it was Uzbekistan, Imam Muslim, like probably the majority of the scholars of Hadith, like back in the days, like a majority of them weren't Arab, Asli originally. They weren't of Arabic origin, but they understood Arabiya. They mastered the Arabic language. Like look at Sheikh Al-Albani, he's an Albanian, and And these, like, when he was in in his class, and because his family moved to Syria, and when he was a kid, because Albania was part of, was ruled over by the communist, Russians, and one of the things which we know is a precept of communism is the hatred for religion. They don't want to let you practice your religion. So
socialism. But
yes, so they and like the teacher, his teachers, school would berate the Arab students because it's like, you see, here you have this Albanian kid, and he's more proficient in Arabic than y'all, and this is your language. You know what I'm saying? This is your mother tongue, because he took that effort. So it doesn't, so we shouldn't just like assume, like somebody asks a question and we're all sitting to match it, and there's one Arab brother, then we all turn to the Arab brother to see what the answer is. The person who's most proficient, in the knowledge, and that could be anyone. That's the beauty of this deen, that our virtue is determined by our taqwa, our fear, and of Allah.
Okay, well, you gave a really good explanation. At first, it was a little boring, but I appreciate it.
Inna akramakum atqakum, that the most honorable you, in the sight of Allah, are the one who is the most pious.
Yes.
As the most taqwa.
Yes, and that too. So that is it for this episode. You want to plug your YouTube channel in?
Well, inshallah, just started, so there's only 2 videos.
Don't say that.
But we're working on building.
We about to blow up.
We're gonna build content. So it's Ruwad al-Luga. It's so Ruwad is the means like can be pioneers or explorers, like explorers of the language. So check us out, and inshallah we're trying to it's basically for people. My focus is not on. We're not going to focus so much on the basics, because there's a lot of YouTube channels that will give you the basics. Reading, writing is one. You got to that point where you pass alif bata. You can conjugate. You put words together. And so it's trying to is filling that void for people that happen to be intermediate or more advanced in Arabic, where they can progress to the next level.
Okay, you guys, this is it from Ummsaalih Speaks. Let me know if you want to do more husband and wife Ibrahim and Ummsaalih videos. We can talk. I know he's a chatterbox when it comes to this game, so alhamdulillah, just have patience with him. But he had to gently just kind of correct a few things. And if there anything else anyone sees that was wrong on that previous,
you didn't talk about, because you brought up about Constantine and
oh yeah, so a lot of people don't know about Constantine, and a lot of people are very unfamiliar with the Arians and Arius, and so he's a big history buff, so he forces us to be history buffs. So
maybe in another video we can go into more detail.
We can go into it about like the history of how Constantine may or may not have been Muslim.
Well, the monotheist, because there's Christians that rejected the Trinity. Like nowadays they call them Unitarians, but they were also referred to as Arians because of you can look them up, Arius.
Yes, so we can talk about that. Let us know if you want to go over a quick history video about certain things, then we can talk about it, and I'll have him on. If you guys thought he wasn't, too bad. All right, bye. Ummsaalih, let's talk.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.